Hello and welcome to North 100, a Canadian Highlander podcast. I'm Serge. Joining me today, I've got a Wheeler.
What up?
And a Nelly.
I'm here too.
A reminder that everything we do is brought to you by you, with your support of the Patreon, over at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. Welcome to part 2 of our Lost Caverns of Ixalan set review. A reminder that everything we do is not exhaustive. It is just the cards that we think are relevant to the format or kind of cool, and some of the commander cards. In part 2 of our set review, we're covering red, green, gold, artifact, and lands. And without further ado, let's just jump right into it with Wheeler.
Bonehorde Dracosaur. 3 red for a 5/5 dinosaur dragon with flying and first strike. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play them this turn. If you exiled a land this way, create a 3/1 red dinosaur creature token. And if you exiled a non-land this way, you make a treasure token. This is incredible. All these words, and it's not even playable.
I was waiting for that because, man, when this was spoiled, people were like, it's so good.
Yeah, I've started to learn that you can't actually gauge the strength of a card on Twitter because they're all commander players or bad or both.
Man, you're feeling punchy today.
Yeah, I can say that. I'm on the CAG. So this doesn't... Why is this not playable?
Why is this not playable, Wheeler?
Great, because it's a 5-mana spell.
Yeah?
Well, it's a 5-mana creature.
We play those sometimes.
We do. Usually when we play them, they either end the game or they're Planeswalker, and you probably shouldn't be playing them, but how do you say no to Teferi, you know? Yeah, it's a 5-mana creature without an ETB. Simple as, mate.
And the other giant block of text.
Well, that giant block of text requires you to go to your upkeep, which means that this has to survive. So you have to pay a bunch of mana, not get anything immediately, and then go to your upkeep, which this ability is quite powerful.
Yeah.
But no haste on your dragon is a little awkward. This doesn't push a huge amount of damage. It doesn't disrupt your opponent's board. It lets you keep on winning. You know, winning might not be the best word. It lets you be like, haha, I managed to untap with my big dragon. Now I'm going to get even more goodies. And it's like, great. But, you know, Swords Path, Doomblade, like it feels bad to say like dies to removal, but in this class of 5-mana red creatures, you know, dies to removal usually comes after like you've at least turned it sideways or tried to attack with it. You know,
they tend to have haste if we're going to play them.
Yeah. Like there are 5-mana big idiot creatures in other colors that we might not be so critical of, but that's
red
because they're
particular?
not red. Yeah. So yeah, I don't think it's so wild to say. It's not that this doesn't do enough. It just doesn't do it soon enough. You know?
All right.
Elder Gargaroth?
I mean, that thing's green. You're getting that card, and it does
two.
That does something immediately, and then it blocks too.
I got 2 more things.
Yeah.
I wish it had protection from angels. Because of the symmetry with Baneslayer Angel.
Angels,
right?
protection from angels and sphinxes. Yeah.
It's so similar. It's so similar to Baneslayer Angel. And the other thing is, I like that it's like a semi-good card. Like people are going to play this card in Magic in general. Like it might be good enough for Standard. I don't know.
Sure.
And I like that it's like a card that's going to see some play, and it's called Bonehorde Dracosaur. Like I just like the idea of that card being shouted across the playground because it's just so nerdy. It feels like return to form of like Hurloon Minotaur and Sengir Vampire.
Yeah, it's a dinosaur and a dragon.
Yeah.
14-year-olds everywhere are losing their mind.
Yeah, no, I like those things about this card.
It is a dinosaur and a dragon. Hold on.
Yeah.
I thought dinosaurs were just dragons. And wow. I'm learning so much. Let's move on before we analyze that comment. Nelson.
Let's talk about Dowsing Device. 1 and a red for an artifact that says whenever this or another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, up to 1 target creature you control gets +1/+0 and haste until end of turn. Then transform this if you control 4 or more artifacts. So, if you already have 3 other artifacts, when it ETBs, you pump one of your creatures and give it haste, and then you get a Geode Grotto, a land cave that taps for a red, or pay 2 and a red and tap it, and until end of turn, target creature gains haste and gets +X/+0, where X is the number of artifacts you control, activate only as a sorcery. I don't immediately know where I would put this card.
Can I see the front again?
It's 2 mana, 1 and a red for an
Yeah.
artifact with an ETB, or whenever another artifact enters. So,
Wow.
and it turns into a land for only 2 mana, so it's kind of like a signet. Right? Like what is I don't know. I don't know what to do with
agree
this
with
card.
you. I don't agree with that statement,
Sure,
but I agree with
sure.
you that this card is like shockingly easy to transform.
Very
Right.
easy to transform. And I
Yeah.
don't know if I
Not as
like
easy.
the backside more than I like the front side.
Well, it taps for
honestly,
mana.
Well, sure, but like the giving all your creatures +1/+0 and haste is actually quite strong, and the ability,
Sure.
the cost of activation. I'm trying to compare this to equipment,
Right.
right? Like my first thought is to put this into like one of the red-white double strike style equipment style decks because it's kind of cool, and it reminds me of the artifacts that come into play and equip for free,
Right.
which is kind of cool and that sort of thing. But the backside doesn't synergize with the same way that I want to activate the front side. That's so much mana. That's actually 4 mana because you need to tap this as well.
Yeah.
It
But-
does do a great example of being what's the black equipment that bashes for 1,000,000 that you can move?
Nightmare Lash?
No,
No.
from Mirrodin, cranial plating.
Cranial
Oh.
plating.
It's
It
not
does
actually black.
like sorry, but it has the black to instant speed, move it around. Like the instant speed hit for 1,000,000 in that artifact density style is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Maybe
dude.
we should
like,
be talking about that more. Yeah.
Like, I bet you would evaluate this higher if it didn't have that second ability. Like that's the
land?
vibe. Yeah, that's the vibe I'm getting.
Literally,
you're
you
not
just-
wrong.
Yeah.
You just play it. It gives some stuff haste. As
No,
long as
I'm
you have 4 artifacts,
like I'm not
it's a
saying
mountain.
I'm not saying it would be better. I'm just saying that Surge might evaluate it higher if that
I
second ability
also don't like that
wasn't
the back
there.
isn't an artifact too. That's
It's a
also
free.
weird
It's
to
a
me.
land. It's
This
a
was
free
only 2.
land.
You only put 2 mana into this.
It doesn't-
and it did something.
and it doesn't tap when it transforms.
Yeah.
So you can just like play this,
Give it
and then immediate. It
haste.
just like will turn into another land.
You're right. I do like this better. All right.
Yeah.
I did get. You're
Okay,
right.
so
Yeah.
we're back on my signet.
All right, hold
comment
on,
being
hold
like
on.
Well, okay.
Closer.
Not-
No. Okay.
you don't. It's not a play it and then can immediately tap it in every scenario.
Yes.
Right.
Right. This is a card that like you can play, buff something, and then maybe you get the immediate transformation, or
Yep.
maybe you just like play this, buff something, and then play a card that starts pooping out a bunch of tokens. Right.
Is
Because
this?
it just gives artifact like any other artifact creatures that you play, you just give them +1/+0 and haste.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Or that are or
up
that
to
are
3
created.
other ones.
Yeah.
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 Well, no, if you make a bunch of them at the
At the
same
same
time,
Simultaneously, you get all the
Yeah.
triggers,
Yeah,
which is
That's
kind of
true.
cool.
So like a mere battle ball.
or Hangerback
Oh my
Walker
God,
that gets
Hangerback Walker.
sacked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this from the Commander set? Just need to check.
Nope.
Real quick.
Just a
Really?
regular uncommon.
Yeah, dude. 2023.
Probably available from your LGS for 11 cents.
So where is it going? I'm absolutely playing it. I do want to try it in the red-white artifact decks. It's specifically the ones that are built around double strike, like give something, pump its power, and then hit for 1,000,000. And I do think the backside does kind of a cool like Wolf Run impersonation
Yeah.
of a land that just threatens to end the game out of nowhere. Like it doesn't even need to pump for that much, but you're going to easily +4, right? Just like, hey, any of my creatures I have, and if you have double strike threats, like GG.
Yeah, just you need to play it in an aggressive deck with a density of artifacts that can pay for red.
Anything with Shadow Spear.
Yeah.
Well, and red pips. Like
Right?
it does
Yeah.
cost red mana.
Sorry.
You can't cheat
yes.
it out with Workshop, but
No,
you
no,
probably want to put it in a deck.
this
that has a
card
Workshop.
is less of a magical Christmas land card than I initially thought.
No?
Like, that I had it in my mind before we read it. Like I knew of this card in
it
my
took
head.
My
It
God,
took me a
I'm
second.
making the what if you talked about the card as printed dig before you are this episode.
Yeah,
Wow. All right. Shall we move on?
sure.
All right, next up we have the Dread Maw's Ire. Single mana instant. Until end of turn, target attacking creature gets +2/+2 and gains trample. And whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, destroy target artifact that players control.
What the hell, man?
This is so cool. This has got to be one of the best pump spells we've ever gotten.
They just keep
Outside-
giving red 1 mana.
I want to say outside of the infect stuff. Like this is not sort of the like, hey, we want to pump you and kill you. This is like one of the best backbreaking combat tricks I've seen in a long time. Because that trample also almost always sets it up to give you the destroy the artifact if you're looking to get them that way.
No, they'll kill me. Yeah. I mean, they'll kill me.
Yeah, but this also still gives you the flexibility. Oh, it's still an attacking creature. I was going to say to use it defensively, but yeah, like if it didn't have that line target attacking creature, that's why it's not going into infect. But wow,
For the record, if you are a red-based creature deck like RDW or the prowessy kind of decks,
Yeah.
like you never actually want to use these defensively anyways.
Sure,
You would
yeah, that's
rather
fair.
just
That's
save
fair.
them to crunch in for a bajillion.
You'd rather just die with 3 pump spells in your hand than
Yeah.
cast them. Seriously,
Actually
actually better.
yeah.
Like you want to
Yeah.
keep playing the games as though you're just going to die until you have a turn when you can attack with your Nivix Cyclops or whatever it is these days.
Or like your actual protection for those decks is casting like a bolt at the face of their creature
Yeah.
to get your prowess creature out of range.
So we were talking about this specifically for the prowess decks. I think that's an auto include. So the type of deck that's playing cheap creatures that grow in a density of spells, closer to a combo deck than a mid-range deck. But I do wonder if this is to go back a step. Combat tricks are historically underplayed in our format, other than in sort of the prowess decks or the infect decks that are looking to get them.
Yeah.
Is this good enough that you like this in more of a fair application, or are you still just thinking for this in like
Depends if your definition of red deck wins is fair. Like
Sure.
I play this in RDW.
I think I like it in RDW
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
I'd give it a shot in like Gruul Blitz as well.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, this card's a pisser. 1 mana give trample, and red's got a bunch of these
One
now
mana.
too.
Honestly, maybe is it Blitz too?
Yeah, I
Like-
could see that.
Like 1 mana trample.
Trample's pretty big.
Trample.
Trample's pretty
I
big.
mean, GT decks get those counters going. Ooh.
Like this is clearly an area like 1 red mana pump spells is clearly something that's like getting pushed to its limit right now. We saw the monstrous roll one in Wilds of Eldraine and now this, and it seems like they're just trying to make this effect where you only pay 1 red mana and you pump an attacking creature as good as it can be until they have to like slam the brakes.
Gone are the days of +3/+1 and scry 1.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, don't
yeah.
smack talk Titan strength. That's still
no, it's still a good one.
it does. We have received more of these, and it makes an interesting divide between which version of red deck wins you want to play too, which is kind of neat. Because the version playing like every like Kessig Flame Breather, Firebrand Archer. Typically they play Thermal Alchemist, although Thermal Alchemist not great with pump spells.
Yeah.
But those decks have an actual identity, and they pilot similarly enough to red deck wins that you're going to get a lot of the same victories off people just not being ready. But they also attack the meta in a different direction, and I think that's not only healthy, but that's extremely cool to see. Is that like if you're just some Goblin Guide pilot that only knows how to turn things sideways, you have options.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Multiple good decks for you.
All right, let's move on. Wheeler.
Inti, Seneschal of the Sun. 1 in a red for a 2/2 legendary human knight. Whenever you attack, you may discard a card. When you do, put a 1/1 counter on target attacking creature. It gains trample until end of turn. And whenever you discard 1 or more cards, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card until your next end step. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Okay, so I like this card quite a
Yep.
bit.
Yep.
It's a nice card.
Yeah. It's a tough one to evaluate without dipping into being like, oh, this is so sick. You play Goblin Guide on 1, this on 2, attack, and then you pitch your extra land that you definitely have.
Yeah,
And it
yeah,
gets
yeah.
bigger, and then you exile a burn spell that you're definitely going to cast next turn.
And then you played into Lelia, and you're in magical Christmas land.
Yeah, I do think that lines like that will pop up
Yes.
if you want to try this in mono red, or if you wanted to try this in medium red, or Boros Humans, which is actually an archetype that has gotten a whole bunch of love in the past 6 months and is probably looking to jam something like this. It is a bear. It's just
Yeah,
a bear.
yeah.
It doesn't have to attack. If you can take advantage of the discarding the cards, great. But, I don't think you should look at this and be like, how am I going to cast my Arrogant Worm off of, this triggered ability or whatnot, or like my Hollow one. Like, I'm not thinking about this in Dredge. The Jund Madness deck that technically exists in the format can play this, but for like more, higher tier applications. I'd be interested in seeing this in mono red.
Is there any
Or
chance that Gruul Monsters wants this, especially like the Trample?
Yeah, the Trample's pretty big.
Yeah.
I don't know. Gruul Monsters is a funny deck because I've always kind of thought of it as a deck that only a Zoomer can build because it just plays like when you build it, you're so tempted to be like, oh, and we get to play this card from 2006 and this card from 2009 or this card from 97. But the Zoomer is just like, no, I'm playing this card from Theros Beyond Death that you didn't even know existed, and I'm killing you dead. So maybe this does show up in that. I don't have the best read on that.
I don't hate that because you can pitch your elves.
I will
right?
say
you have the aggressive start, and then you just constantly upgrade the cards and turn them into damage. So
we'll say, like, often red aggressive creatures, not that worried about Caracas. This one, super ruined by Caracas.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
Also,
that caveat.
it's not, the discard is also not tied to the first ability. Like,
yeah,
your
that's
opponent
right.
could just, like, thought seize you, and you're like, okay, take this card, exile the top card.
Yeah, I mean, if they do have Caracas, you can just, like, slam this and
Wait.
then,
oh, the second part, yeah.
Yeah.
you know, well, actually, that doesn't work, sorry. But if you can follow up with discarding as part of a cost, rather than, I was going to say cast Faithless Looting, but if you can cast this and then immediately cast that Souls of the Lost, then you'll get the trigger.
Oh my god. All right, let's move on.
We did it. We built a bad deck.
Yeah. All right, Nelly.
It's my turn to talk about Sunshot Militia. 1 and a red for a 1/3 human soldier with tap 2 untapped artifacts and or creatures you control. Sunshot Militia deals 1 damage to each opponent. Activate only as a sorcery. Hey, it's a 2-mana ether grid.
Yeah.
Gira per ether grid
Gira
that
per ether
also can tap creatures. Now it is a creature itself, so that has, you know, its own flaws. It's only got 3 toughness. It only attacks for 1 if that's what you want to do. But still, just being able to double up on Gira per ether grid has probably got some of you excited.
It's gear per ether grid you can find off Imperial Recruiter. That's
Yeah.
not nothing.
It's a Gira per ether grid. You can tap a bunch of like spirit tokens to activate.
Sure.
I think this is one of these cards that we're like, I'm glad this exists. Next card.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a thing. There's a deck that could maybe play it. It's probably not making the cut.
Yeah.
But if a better version of this card comes
I was going to
along-
say, it's neat to note. You put a little note in your brain.
tick,
You're like,
yeah.
I'm going to remember that this exists, and at some point, this might be really cool.
Yeah. If eventually what really matters is number of Gira per ether grids available in deck, then this is in.
All right, let's move on then to the Trumpetine Carnosaur. Nailed it. 6 mana, 7/6 dinosaur for 4 red has trample. When it enters the battlefield, discover 5. Now, we haven't talked about discover yet. Discover is neat, and the best way to think about it would be fixed cascade.
It's a bit like Fixed Cascade.
Yeah, so when it enters the battlefield, what you do is you start revealing cards, exiling cards off the top of your deck until you reveal a spell with mana value 5 or less. Then you may cast that spell. If you don't cast it, you put it into your hand, and then you put the remainder of the cards on the bottom of your library in any order, which is kind of cool.
You cast a spell without paying its mana cost.
You also cast the spell without paying its mana cost. Pardon me. I always miss that part, but that's an
It's important.
extremely important part.
Yeah.
And there's also an activated ability. 2 and a red, discard the Trumpetine Carnosaur. Deal 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker. It's big. It's a lot. I mean, you get a lot of bang for your buck there. You also get a bit of a flexibility, a bit of a modal thing there with being able to shoot a creature or planeswalker. This might be too big for medium red. Oh, it enters the battlefield. You can reanimate. It's not even cast.
But do you want to reanimate it?
Probably not.
I mean, I'd big red with this
You
card.
big red?
Yeah.
Yeah? It doesn't
like-
have haste.
I forgot the big
That's
red
fine.
exists.
It's a 6 mana 7/6 that comes with another card.
Yeah,
you
you know
cast
what?
a signet for free off the top of your deck.
Or a Chandra.
Or a
Sure.
planeswalker. I
Maybe
mean,
give a Chandra.
I think the only redeeming grace about this is that activated ability, is the fact that you can early game turn it into a burn spell just so it's not stuck in your hand and you die with it.
It's a
Which
super
is
fair cost of
The-
burn spell, but it's also kind of encounterable.
The high roll on this card is absurd.
Yep.
The low roll on this card is you still have a 7/6 that ramped you that has trample.
Yep.
And then
The
you-
low roll is
and-
it's a burn spell.
Well, that's not even a low roll. That's the I get to do this.
Yep.
It's just like you have uncounterable removal at instant speed, which is kind of hot.
Yeah,
I don't
notably,
know.
you're not casting that ability, which is
Yeah.
kind of spicy. Cool.
See,
I mean,
I like this card more than like the Bone Horde Dracosaur cards that try to do way too much, right? Even for something like Big Red. We didn't talk about the 5 mana card for Big Red, but like
Big Red, you just play all the haste dragons.
yeah, you play the Haste Dragons, but like this kind of card, it just like the floor is good, the ceiling is good, and then there's also this added utility that is very unique to this kind of, you know, it's you're not going to get this kind of ability anywhere else. That's pretty cool.
Shall we move on to green?
Sounds good.
Unfortunately,
Wheeler.
Galta Stampede Tyrant. 5 green, green, green for a 12/12 legendary creature Elder Dinosaur with Trample. When Galta enters the battlefield, put any number of creature cards from your hand onto play.
Wowee, Wheeler.
What's your problem?
Looks like Genesis is back on the menu, boys.
What is this? Why? What's going on here?
It's weird that it's not when you cast it, right? That's kind of
Yeah,
weird.
yeah.
That's weird.
That's weird.
That's weird.
I would try this out in Hoof or Big Green or God, even like an Elves deck maybe. Like I don't know. This is a card much like the Carnosaur where people tend to pass over these big Timmy cards just because it's like, oh, nice deck. Is there a Colossal Dreadmaw in there? Haha, I am very smart. It's like, you're not so smart when you're taking 12, bud. Or you're not so smart when this comes into play and then just also dumps. Like, if this card brings a Rex Sage with it that's stuck in your hand, that's also good, right?
Sure.
Like the floor of Natural Order out this card, or even cast it. 8's not the end of the world for a Gaia's Cradle Mana Dork deck to hit.
8. It's not 20.
It's doable.
Yeah, I don't know.
Right?
Yeah.
We need to do an episode at some point that
Full stop.
that shows that line between Bone Horde Dracosaur and Galta Stampede Tyrant, right? Because I think a lot of people will look at both of these and be like, but this card is worse than Bone Horde Dracosaur.
Magic players like to feel really smart. And so a card with a whole bunch of words that is like a mythic that has all upside, assuming you get to keep it, is really appealing, as opposed to this card where it has a home. What it does is unique and very powerful. And it's also just so big it 2-shots people. Often will just 1-shot someone when you bring a card alongside it.
Okay, I guess we don't need an episode then.
I mean, we could. No. Hold on.
15
No,
seconds,
please.
all right,
We've got it. We really got it. It's been like years, dude.
I have never been on an episode of North 100 that isn't a
It's not
set
a
review
set
podcast. And this isn't my first year on the show. But yeah, this goes in those decks you mentioned. Like,
Thanks, dude.
I don't know. I agree.
Yeah.
This card's kind of messed up.
Yeah.
Do you play it with what is the one green cantrip thing? Like, are we trying to do an elf ball thing with this? Or are you just playing it fair?
Glimpse of Nature.
Glimpse of Nature?
Well,
Well,
I thought
this is
glimpse,
really
but I saw
combo.
glimpse as the next card, so I thought it was throwing me off.
Well, I did. I mentioned, maybe playing it in Elves.
Yeah.
And that is a deck that can rack up a bunch of cards in its hand and then just like want to get them out, but maybe it's not always available to. That it might be a little more win more in Elves than anything, but I don't know. That is actually a good. Thank you for bringing that up. Reminded me of this. This card's not as win more as you'd think. It's just setting up to kill people.
Sure.
Like looking at this and being like, oh, wow, I get my 12/12 in play so that you can get your other 6 mana, 7 mana creature. Like, what is this, Commander? It's like, no. But also just playing this and like if you have like Natural Order or Rex Sage and your opponent has like a Paradox Engine in play,
Right.
like what are you doing? Right? Or, you want to like what does Natural Order for Primetime do when you might just die here? Because like there are certain cards that Hoof players still play occasionally that they probably shouldn't be just because it's Hornet Queen just gets furied or whatever.
Sure.
Like
You know what this reminds me of, and maybe this will follow a similar life cycle is Woodland Bellower, which was like a 6-mana 6/4 that when it entered play, you got to tutor for a 3-mana creature and then put it directly into play.
Put some respect on Big Bear's name. That's a 6/5.
Oh, 6/5, pardon me. And that was really interesting because it provided a bunch of utility stapled to a huge body. And you're like, wow, this thing is really strong, but also it's kind of like a cool toolkit card.
Yeah.
So I don't know if similar.
What do you think of putting this into Reanimator as like?
I genuinely don't hate that.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about it a little more, and
I can't decide if I love it or not, but it sort of gives you this protection of if the thing ends up in your hand that you really want.
Again, that's something that sounds like win more, but it's like, no, that actually, Reanimator's a deck where like you can only put so many of your creatures in the yard just by the nature of how many discard effects you have, or not wanting to overextend into like an endurance or a lion sash or whatever. And the only thing that came to my mind when I was thinking about that is, why isn't this when it's cast, and why does this let you put any creatures no matter the color?
Yeah.
Like, this feels like it should be when it's
any
cast,
green color
put green
or,
creatures.
Yeah.
It's,
This feels like it'd be a good toolkit card for Reanimator, where you have those like slot picks. You're like, yeah, this helps me get around X.
Yeah, like in case your Iona is in your hand and you don't have a discard outlet, but you do have an Entomb and a reanimation spell. It's like
It also plays into what Reanimator has become in recent years, where like a lot of the Reanimator builds, the top performing Reanimator builds, have shed like all their counter magic, or basically everything except like maybe Daze and Force of Will. And their game plan is reanimate a threat that is difficult to deal with, but also gives me enough value so that when it's dealt with, I get to just reanimate another threat instead of like, here's my thing, please don't kill it, please don't kill it, please don't kill it.
I have to win the game off of this because I've lost everything.
And this plays into the updated game plan pretty well. Of like, here's my Galta, and by the way, I also have a Trench George in play. What are you going to kill?
All right. Let's move on to the next card. Deli.
Thank you, Galta, for your service. Yeah, Glimpse the Core. It's 1 and a green for a sorcery with choose one. Search your library for a basic forest card, put it into play tapped, then shuffle, or return target cave card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Hey, we got a new little rampant growth for you. It's like kind of good in limited if you're milling yourself and you have caves in your graveyard, and in Canadian Highlander, it is another card for 2 mana that finds a forest and puts it in the battlefield tapped. Do you want more of those? You get more of those. I might play it in
Scape Shift?
blue-green, take all the turns. Blue-green taking turns.
Curb?
Curb Your Enthusiasm preferred getting more lands into play because it was going to do stuff like evacuation. Like it didn't want to play, and it just didn't want its mana dorks to be killed. Yeah. So it played slightly worse. It's more expensive to get more lands into play than it is to make Llanowar elves. But there's advantages.
I do think there is. I think Scape Shift is in a reasonable spot. That is underutilized, especially with Mystical Tutor going to 1,
right?
And the introduction of triomes, meaning that like having enough mountains in your deck.
Mountains.
The worst part about
your deck. Oh my god.
Yeah, the worst part about Scape Shift is that you had to play mountains in your
because you don't want to
deck.
Play, That was it was a very real cost of inclusion. It was brutal.
And back in the standard days, actually, this was approached by one deck builder who a bunch of people copied, and they played 66 cards, and they did the math. And this person was I can't remember their name. Sorry, and let me know their name in the comments if you remember who I'm talking about.
68.
Was it 68? I thought it was 66. It was more than 60, but it wasn't like 100 or anything. It was like the right number so that you had like X number of mountains out of the percentage, and you could always go for the blue-green lands, and still there'd be enough mountains.
Yeah.
One of the secret worst things that you can do when you're piloting Scape Shift is to draw your mountains or have them in play, because you're constantly doing math in your head of being like, I need to have 8. And so your deck building, you're like, I need to include 13 and never fetch for them, but I might need to have 1 at certain points. Yeah, triomes make it better. And you never want your deck to be red because it just dilutes the best parts of your deck.
Also, Field the Dead. We haven't really had many dedicated Scape Shift pilots after the printing of Field of the Dead, which just lets you... sometimes Valakut's not actually killing them, or sometimes you do get screwed, and you're like, oh... Well, I'm just going to make, 9, 2, 2,
55 zombies. Yeah.
55 zombies, 55 hamburgers.
Cool. Yeah. 55 fries, 55.
So, don't sleep on this. This might actually be a really important card.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have Huatli. Poet of Unity. This is a 3-mana, 2/3 legendary human warrior bard for 2 and a green. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, and put it into your hand, which I don't love, then shuffle. Now, an activated ability for 3 red-white hybrid, exile Huatli, then return it to the battlefield transformed under her owner's control, activate as a sorcery. And on the opposite side, we have Roar of the Fifth People, which is a saga with 4 chapters. Chapter 1, create 2 3/3 green dinosaur creature tokens. Chapter 2, Roar of the Fifth People gains creatures you control have the ability to tap for Naya. So a red, a green, and a white.
Or a white.
Or a white, not and.
Not
Thank
all
you.
3.
Yeah,
They just can tap for 1 mana.
Thank you.
This isn't not Vine Mystic, am
Yeah.
I right?
Yeah.
Conflux gamers.
Good memory.
Chapter 3, search your library for a dinosaur card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. Chapter 4, dinosaur creatures you control gain double strike and trample until end of turn. I'm going to start with probably the worst words you can say in Magic in 2023. There sure are a lot of words printed on this card. It sure does a lot. Can we go back to the front side, please, James? Now, unfortunately, this is a 3-mana legend with an ETB that isn't great. The land going into your hand instead of into play is significant, right? Like, that is a significant difference.
Check out Buddy, who's never cast a Civic Wayfinder.
I mean,
huh?
they gave Borderland Ranger a 3rd toughness. You don't like putting basic lands into your hand? Like, why not?
Not as much as I'd play Wood Elves over Borderland Ranger any day. And that's a significant difference,
All
right?
Sure.
Like, and that's why 3-mana Nissa wasn't as exciting either, right? Did that put in here?
I'm just hearing now that 3-mana
Three-mana
Nissa
Nissa
wasn't
wasn't
exciting.
exciting.
Let me just go run over to my decks and
Sorry.
take her out.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree with you ultimately. I don't like the way that you're wording this, dude.
and the other side is also kind of spicy because like 5 mana giving you 6 power and toughness is okay. It's a little clunky that it's limited to dinosaurs. And ultimately, the play pattern here is pretty weird because if it put it into play for 3, it would ramp you into 5. And it doesn't accelerate you on the turn. So you kind of have this weird lapse, unless you're getting another mana somewhere, to go from 3 to 5 to really take off on the backside. So I don't know. I find it a little bit clunky. And I don't know where you want to play it. And I also don't think there's a dedicated dinosaur deck that cares too much. There's some good dinosaurs. So maybe like incidentally you hit stuff on 3, but there isn't like dinosaur tribal that we care about as much, which also means that you're probably not getting as much double strike and trample for the finisher that you want. Yeah. Ultimately, I'm pretty medium on this card.
I think you can just play it in green-red monsters and go find your Carnage Tyrant.
But like, I think there's better cards at 3 that you want to play because it doesn't ramp you, right? It just puts a basic land into your hand.
Yeah.
And then at 5, I don't know.
But like I named a deck that's not trying to ramp real hard, right? It's just like playing like cards on curve until 6.
But they're
right?
playing better cards at 3
Sure, that's fair.
than Huatli. Like, I don't think you're gonna cut.
I don't know who you would cut. Also, is green-red monsters just like this deck that I like call upon every time I'm like, I'm not sure where this card goes, but maybe it goes in that deck.
I mean, again,
I might be guilty of that.
Boomer trying to build green-red
Yeah,
monsters in his
exactly.
hand.
What if we just put this in? You're like,
I
no.
don't think this unfortunately has a home.
Yeah.
I like the card. I don't think it. I like the card. I think you're underselling the value of like a 3-mana, 3 toughness creature that draws a card effectively, even if it's a basic. That's relevant, especially in a world of blood moons and whatnot. The fact that you can only activate this as a sorcery is honestly the biggest pull for me, because this is just kind of embarrassing. You like 5 mana sorcery speed, activate it, and they're like, oh, Caracas. And you're like, oh, I see. Or
Yeah, the
Bolter.
exile is on the other side of the colon. I didn't even notice that.
Yeah,
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 like
it's-
killing it in response to 5 mana is rough.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah.
So I don't actually hate, like, we're making a different card. If this card was different, I'd play it. I actually don't hate having a Borderland Ranger style card in your deck. But I think that it just doesn't, it's too vulnerable at what it does. And then, yeah, the flip side's a little narrow.
All right, Wheeler, you're up.
Jade Light Spelunker. X and a green for a 1/1 Merfolk Scout. When Jade Light Spelunker enters the battlefield, it explores X times. This is a cool Merfolk.
Weird.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why would they do that?
Well, it's a very cool Merfolk. I would play this in Merfolk. And that's it. It's worth mentioning because Merfolk is a deck that has You mentioned that it has card advantage or card flow issues. I don't entirely agree. I think it has scaling issues. And this isn't a fish joke. I think it has an issue in that sometimes it draws its cards at a inappropriate time where it's not really impacting the board significantly. Like drawing a Lord on turn 5 is cool if you already have a board.
Yes.
But it doesn't really do much if you don't have a board. Thankfully, Lost Caverns of Ixalan is actually introducing a bunch of cards that help with that issue. Some of them that we're not talking about today because, again, we're kind of keeping this all... We're mentioning a couple of these cards to tackle the archetype as a whole. But this is a pretty good example of a card where if you draw this on turn 5, like, with nothing on the board, that's great.
Didn't the 3-mana 2/1 that explores twice get a bunch of play in our format?
Jadelight Ranger?
Yes, Jadelight Ranger.
It did.
So, this is that card except it has 1 power. So it's, slightly worse, but also much better because of the flexibility.
So instead of a 2/1 for 3, it's a 1/1 for 3.
Yeah,
they both explore twice.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just comparing it to cards, that we have played.
Or it's just a 2-mana 1/1 that draws you a card. This can be this could be Sylvan Ranger. This could be, also Explorer is a very interesting mechanic when it comes to, sculpting the top of your deck and how you explore. Yeah. This is Wheeler's. I've played too much Jadelight Ranger during that PTQ season. That if you're exploring twice and you want to ensure that you're getting the counters, you can say explore, keep it on top, explore, put it in the graveyard.
Yeah.
I like this card. It scales well. It lets you have something big when you need something big. It lets you fill your curve wherever you are. And it's just easy to cast. It's a single green pip.
Yeah, I don't know. I
suggest we could probably move on.
I just want to say that I wouldn't be surprised if we see this card outside of Merfolk.
Okay.
Where?
I don't know yet.
Sure. All right, start us off with green, Nelly. Or green, gold, pardon me.
It's time to talk about Abuelo, Ancestral Echo. 1 white-blue for a 2/2 legendary spirit with flying and ward 2. And if you pay 1 white and a blue, you may exile another target creature or artifact you control, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. Hey, it's another Blink card. It's legendary, but it has ward 2.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's a 2/2 flyer, so that's sweet. I just keep thinking about Soul Herder, and it's you do have to pay mana, but you can hit an artifact.
Eldrazi Displacer.
Yeah, Eldrazi Displacer. It's part of that team. I think in decks that have Soul Herder, probably you're going to find room for this thing. It is 3 mana to do it, but you get a 2/2 flying ward too.
Also, there's no restriction for sorcery, so it gives you a little bit of ability to protect stuff if you want to be...
Yeah.
It gives you room for counterplay, which is kind of spicy.
You can't exile your opponent's cards, which is a little oofa-doofa. That's one thing Displacer can do.
Sure.
But the Ward 2 really pushes it. That's what you want on these cards, where it's look, don't touch my stupid grandpa over here just trying to, flicker things. Leave it alone.
I need the grandpa to make all the other cards work.
Yeah.
I don't see it being played a whole lot outside of Blink decks. I don't know, Spirits? Is that a deck?
Oh, no.
Okay. But in your Blink deck, play it.
Yeah, sure, why not?
All right, next up, Amalia. Benavides Aguirre? Not bad.
Yeah.
This is a 2-mana 2/2 legendary creature vampire scout for 1 and a black. It has ward 3, pay 3 life, so pretty steep. I mean, a payable,
decent.
but a decent tax. Whenever you gain life, Amelia explores. Then destroy all other creatures if its power is exactly 20, which is kind of funny. So I like this, obviously, in the vampire deck, the black-white vampire deck. It just is another density at 2 drops. That deck has a lot of incidental life gain, and so you get to explore, which is powerful card selection, the ability to grow the thing. I don't know how often the destroy all other creatures if its power equals exactly 20 is going to be relevant. I imagine most games are going to end well before that, unless Wheeler decides to put this in to ruin your evening, specifically just to ruin your evening.
You can combo it with Wild Growth Walker, which is a green card, but it also only 2 mana.
What's the combo?
So Wild Growth Walker just explores whenever you gain, or no. No.
It's a 1/3 for 1 and a green. Whenever you explore, you put a 1/1 counter on it and gain 3 life.
Right. It gains life whenever you explore, and this
Oh.
thing explores whenever you gain life. So they
You
just
get to
go
do this
infinite.
until is it infinite?
Well,
or
no,
do
it
all the other
stops at
creatures,
20.
Yeah,
Stops
blows
at
up
20.
and it kills the wild
But
growth walker.
but look, you made a 20/20 for like 4 mana plus 1 life gain. So it's not like a horrible combo. It doesn't win the game immediately.
You also get to explore a bunch.
You can explore a bunch.
Yeah, you explored a whole bunch and you made a 20/20.
And they're both 2 mana creatures.
Yeah.
That's pretty relevant.
So like if you just want to throw both of these into your like Abzan creature combo with lots of tutors already deck, go for it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, Wheeler.
Bartolome del Presidio, white and a black for a 2/1 legendary creature, Vampire Knight. Sacrifice another creature or artifact, put a 1/1 counter on Bartolome. So this is a free sack outlet.
Yep.
That's not. There's no mana
There's
associated.
no
with that.
mana associated.
And it doesn't
Or
say once
tap
per
or
turn.
anything,
Or
yeah.
sorcery or your turn.
Unbelievable. 2 things. One, it is a vampire, so I'd probably play this in vampires. In fact, I am playing this in vampires. And 2, it's a legend, which is a little awkward. I guess I have a third point, but it's a legend, which is a little awkward, obviously, with Krakus. But usually you play this, sack the thing immediately, and then you're off to the races if we're combo killing in like a Sandy B style deck. If we're doing aristocrat stuff, any mana they are spending to Krakus your creature is probably okay, even if this just does get bigger and bigger. It's, they're dying to other things. But it's actually relevant that it's a legend as well because of Samwise. So Samwise Gamgee has Samwise Gamgee, 2 mana 2/2. Whenever a creature ETBs, you create a food and then sacrifice 3 foods. You return a historic creature or historic permanent.
Maybe historic permanent.
From your graveyard to your hand. Return target historic card from your graveyard to your hand. So this is relevant in that you have a sack outlet that is already going into the decks that are going to have the Sam combo. Maybe not Flash Hulk, but in the creature combo version. That you can just get it back with your Sam, which is kind of hot. That gives
very
you some
cool. Yeah.
redundancy. The final thing is that it can't sack itself, which is a little
Another, yeah.
It's a bit of an issue when you're using the Pattern of Rebirth combo, but that's okay. We just need more density of these cards, and this card is certainly better than Bloodthrone Vampire, so we'll take it.
Thanks for giving us another free sack outlet, Watsy.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Nelly.
It's time to talk about Captain Storm, Cosmium Raider. It's Lannery Storm, now costing blue and red for a 2/2 human pirate, legendary creature. And it says whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target pirate you control. Neat. It's a pirate that likes artifacts and treasures and stuff and can make itself big. If you play lots of artifacts after it, I am at a total loss. I have no idea where you put this card.
2 mana 2/2 that gets bigger when artifacts ETB.
Sure.
It's kind of hot.
Yeah.
But it's also not an artifact. It's kind of not hot.
Okay. I don't have a deck for this card.
Yeah, it seems to non-bow with a lot of other stuff.
I'd probably play Dowsing Device instead of this.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we talked about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we put this under the category of I'm going to know that this exists for something in the future, but
When did you see there's a thing that got bigger with artifacts?
thank you.
That's what we're avoiding.
Yeah. Why did they talk about Captain Storm?
We talked about it.
All right, next up, we have Hawkball of the Surging Soul, of the Me Soul. This is a 4 mana 3/3 legendary Merfolk Scout for 2, a green, and a blue. At the beginning of combat on your turn, each Merfolk creature you control explores.
What the hell?
No, wait, there's more. Whenever a Hackball of the Surging Soul attacks, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. If you don't, draw a card.
Yikes.
So this is one of the commanders from the pre-con decks. This is just like the box commander that's in there. And this. So Merfolk has always been powerful, not in Canadian Highlander, but in Legacy and in these more eternal formats. Because you go Lord of Atlantis, Lord of Atlantis, Lord of Atlantis, swing for 10 million.
Yeah, your deck is all pack rats and 4 force wills.
Yeah, and the Highlander deck has always lost sort of that like turbo button that really shoots the deck and takes it to another dimension. Hawkball is potentially that top end that it was missing. Now, it is a 4-mana legend that doesn't have an immediate impact when it hits the board. But if you have that little window where you get to go to combat, this gets out of control fast. Explore gives you a tremendous amount of card advantage, card selection, and it just makes your board thick.
It's worth noting, too, that Merfolk is a deck that tends to play some amount of mana disruption, either through like a Spreading Seas type of effect, Back to Basics, Rashad and Port, Tidal Warrior, Tide Shaper, just a bunch of pissy little fish that just like to turn things into islands.
Nickel and dime your mana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they'll be in play, and you can explore with them, too.
Yes. Yeah. This lets your utility cards scale
Yeah.
as well.
It's very, very cool.
Yeah.
Wheeler.
Molten Collapse, because Dreadbore wasn't good enough. Black and a red for a sorcery. Choose one. If you descended this turn, you may choose both instead. Reminder, descend is just... It's nothing. You're playing Magic. You just had to have a permanent card put into your graveyard from anywhere. Fetch land. Maybe you discarded a card, cracked your bauble, whatever. Anywho, destroy target creature or planeswalker.
That's fair.
That's pretty good. Yep. Destroy target non-creature, non-land permanent with mana value 1 or less. That's also shockingly relevant at times.
Super good in our format.
Yeah.
There's a lot of those.
So it didn't need that bottom, like, there's so many parts of this card that were unnecessary, I guess. Like, this would see play if it was a functional Dreadbore reprint.
Sure.
This would see play if it just said Dreadbore or blow up their Skull Clamp, Shadow Spear, Mox, Pithing Needle, whatever.
Also true.
And then you just get to do both because you, like, sequenced your lands properly.
Yeah.
Holy crap. This card... So Rakdos is a deck in our format that has not... People haven't experimented with it enough, which is wild because it's taking over like every other
format. Yeah, John and Marty were popular though.
Yeah, that's true. We get the advantage of just having better mana, so that 3-color decks have better mana than 2-color decks. So you're likely to just see players move to one of those wedges or shards. Mm-hmm. But this is the kind of card that if we get more redundancy in this category, then you might. Like, it might push more players to be like, actually, I'm just going to play Rakdos.
Yeah.
Because this is absurd. If it's the deck that just says, I'll kill whatever I want, whenever I want, and then play cards like Grief Fury, Fable the Mirrorbreaker, Orcish Bowmaster, Shieldred, like...
Graveyard Trespasser.
You know where my brain just went? Black Moon Initiative.
Whoa, neat.
So sorry, you took the conversation where we're talking about a really good, solid, reliable base, and we're like, I got an idea.
We're going to smush 2 decks
5
together.
more things.
Seriously, though, like, this card is so heinously good that you clearly have to play it. Like, if you have a Dreadbore in a deck and you can't decide what else to cut, you just have to cut your Dreadbore.
Yeah.
That's how good this card is.
Yeah.
Obviously.
But you should probably cut something else and just put
Yeah. Don't cut your Dreadbore, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Nelly, next up.
Hey, it's the Planeswalker from the set. Let's talk about Quintorius Cond, maybe. 3 generic red-white for 4 loyalty legendary Planeswalker Quintorius. So happy to see a Lockstone become a Planeswalker. That's awesome. With a static, whenever you cast a spell from exile, Quintorius Cond deals 2 damage to each opponent and you gain 2 life. For +1, you get to create a 3/2 red and white spirit creature token, just like from Strixhaven. For -3...
Are those the exact same tokens?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, they might have new art for this.
I was going to say, yeah, thank you.
might.
Sorry, I cut you off. Keep going.
That's okay, yeah. -3, you discover 4. We talked about that earlier. It's basically Cascade until you hit a 4-drop or less. Or is it less than 4? I forget.
It's
4 or
equal to.
less.
4 or less.
Yeah.
And for -6, you may exile any number of target cards from your graveyard, add a red mana to your mana pool for each card exiled this way. You may play those cards this turn. So kind of like a Chandra vibe on the last one. It pluses to make tokens. Like, that's pretty huge. If the tokens aren't good enough for you, you get to discover. And by the way, when you cast your discover spell, you're getting that static. You'll get that static from all the other ways that red has to cast spells from exile, or that just Magic in general has to cast from exile, like from when your opponent's interacting with your stuff. And I don't know, the -6, it's like it's any cards, so that's pretty sweet. It's not just instants and sorceries. Like, you can get back anything from your graveyard this turn. So that's fairly useful. I don't think this card's quite as good as Comet. Comet only costs 4, right?
Jesus, no.
So it's not like immediately kicking Comet out, but I don't know. This card does a lot of stuff.
It's
not
not
5 mana. That's the main problem with it.
It's not embarrassing.
Yeah.
You know, it's yeah.
So I have an important question here.
Yeah.
I can't think about the evaluation of this card at all. I just keep thinking about Strixhaven right now.
Sure.
Was Quintarius a character from Strixhaven that
Yes.
has found their spark?
yeah.
Yes.
During the March of the Machine events, I think they got their spark lit up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just like this card feels like it's from the wrong set.
Well, it's Planeswalkers, though.
It
They do
it
that.
has
They do
Discover. I mean, I guess that is literally the
And,
flavor of
and he's a
Planeswalkers
part
and
of the
stuff.
like archaeologist like
Okay,
Yeah,
I guess,
the
yeah,
lore-
he does want to
lore
come
hold?
explore and find
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
it's all very on theme.
The
But I
Planeswalkers often feel like they're from the wrong side,
Yeah.
though, right?
but I also don't blame you because you know, who can remember the past 3 years?
I don't know, team. What do you think? Like, I don't immediately have a home where I'm like, oh, Quintorius is a slam in this deck, which usually means I'm just saying I'm not playing it in Canadian Highlander. But I like the feel of this card. I like the flexibility of, discover and make tokens and gain life. I like all the words that are on this card. It's not incredible at protecting itself. It makes ground blockers really well.
It's a card that I'm relieved when my opponent casts, but I'm not relieved if it sticks around, you know?
Right.
Where, like, if they play this card, I'm like, oh,
I can beat
hell
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
they
sure.
put this in their deck.
Right.
And then if I can't deal with it, I'm like, oh, they have 2/3/2s and this, like, 6 loyalty planeswalker.
Yeah.
So kind of the same as the Dracosaur, right? Because it's like they play it, they get nothing from it for a full turn. But then if they untap with it and they like start making treasures
I think-
and free creatures, you're like, oh,
I think this card's scarier than the Draco.
I do. I agree with that as
Yeah.
well. There's already so much support in red-white already for casting things from exile.
yeah. I mean,
Like a lot.
yeah, that static might
Yeah.
just kill you.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's like red white, like Boros Wildfire, Boros Stacks, kind of stuff. Like this isn't, again, I use the word embarrassing, in that if you play this in that deck, power to you. Maybe it's like the mono black thing, right?
Yeah.
Where it's just, you know, it might not be the most strategic inclusion, but you also didn't pick the most strategically,
Right.
you know, viable deck or whatever. But that's okay. For that archetype, this does something that you're looking to already do, which is make blockers have planeswalkers and maybe find extra cards every couple of turns, and gives you some wiggle room with the burn. Yeah.
I mean, I could see myself playing this in Boros. Maybe. Just because I already played, what's it called? Revenge of the Scalds from
Showdown of the
Kaldheim,
Skulls.
Showdown of the
Right.
Scalds.
Yep.
Like, and that card, when that resolves, the turn after that resolves, like you're possibly winning the game. And I feel similarly that this might have that finisher potential. Because like you play this, you make a 3/2, you pass, which is not a great play.
Sure.
You don't really want a 5-mana 3/2.
You're paying 3 more mana than you wanted to for that 3/2.
But then the turn after, you're like, they might just be dead.
sure.
And that's
Five loyalty's pretty good.
Yep.
right.
Yeah.
It's approaching
But mind-
Oko
But
standard.
mind you, like, you could just be playing Minsc and Boo. You could be playing a whole bunch of other things.
yeah,
that are
Yeah.
that's fair. It's not like top 5 planeswalkers.
You
No.
could be,
or anything.
yeah, but you could be at home playing like Tekken. You could be out playing hockey with people.
That's true.
Like if you are deciding to play Boros, then this
Sure.
is a reasonable card to play.
Yeah, yeah,
Like it
yeah.
does fit that role, you know.
Okay, Serge.
All right, next up is me, Saheeli, the Sun's Brilliance. This is a 2-mana 2/2 legendary human artificer for a blue and a red. Activated ability, blue-red tap. Create a token that's a copy of another target creature or artifact that you control, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. It gains haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So this is another Saheeli doing more Saheeli stuff. Now, downside, it's a legend that comes into play, and you have to untap before it does anything. On the upside, it does Saheeli artifact stuff, which is a very, very, very powerful thing that it can do. Combo application, mid-range application. What? All right, Wheeler. This is probably in your wheelhouse, if I may.
Yeah, so that's undeniably a powerful effect.
Yeah.
It's kind of in like the Oswald range where you look at it and you're like, wow, think of the combo applications. But then when you actually play with the card, like Oswald, you're like, wow, find my Ichor Wellspring, right? Or find my copy of this. And I look at this card and I'm like, oh my God, I can copy my Trinket Mage.
Yeah.
Like that's sick, right? And it's a legend without an ability, but it's a 2/2.
Yeah.
It's a 2-mana creature. Like this is pretty. I like it. I think it's pretty reasonable. It's a little narrow in application.
Yeah.
But there's enough good going for it that I think it's worth testing. And again, we mentioned that Academy decks there's so much room to explore with Tolarian Academy that there's probably there was an Izzet Academy deck that was being worked on right before the pandemic with that was in this vibe, and the point spread was like Mox Tinker Academy. And this card could slide in on that, doing mid-range stuff with Kappa Cannoneer. Like if this copies Kappa Cannoneer, you're off to the races.
That's so exciting.
But even if this just copies like your Fable of the Mirror Breaker token or Trinket Mage,
another Karnstruct,
right? Yeah, that's huge, right?
Just like copies whatever your Fable of the Mirror Breaker was going to copy.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
So yeah, I like it.
Only 2 mana for a 2/2. So when they kill it, you're not out that much.
Yeah. Okay. So my evaluation was there. I just didn't know if there was a line I hadn't thought about with that activated ability. It's not
going to combo. It's not going to go into because it costs 2 to tap.
Well, so whenever you see the copy and the haste,
yeah,
like that's in Kiki Jiki territory of like maybe you have some type of loop. Like I'm thinking Rings of Brighthurst. Maybe there's like some shenanigan I hadn't seen for those pieces because the ability copy an artifact and it gains haste, and in the color pie are traditionally some pretty degenerate things. So that's fair.
Sorry, I'm trying to work out a combo in my
right?
head.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's got to be close.
There is, I don't even want to say it out loud because it's embarrassing how many pieces are needed. But this is fine.
You might oops into it some game. Sure. All right, I'll throw it back to you though, Wheeler, for the next card.
Singer of Swift Rivers. This is a Merfolk from the Merfolk Commander deck. 1 green and a blue for a 3/2 flash Merfolk Shaman. When Singer of Swift Rivers enters the battlefield, put a shield counter on another target creature you control. You may cast Merfolk spells as though they had flash.
Yeah.
So, this provides... So Merfolk, I was actually having this conversation with Robin Sorensen, where we were discussing the best typal deck. And he said that low-key, Merfolk is the best typal deck in the format.
Sorry, I need you to go back
Typal? It's a less offensive version of tribal.
Yeah, pardon me. Okay, I didn't know that word is. Perfect. Thank you. Okay.
And
so Merfolk is number 1 now.
And I was like, no, Cap, it's goblins. It's got to be goblins. And Robin just says goblins can't play Days. And I was like, well, I still agree with you, but you're right. That's the big strength of Merfolk is that it's just you play out your lords and your creatures, and then you just use 1 disruptive spell, and then it throws everything out of whack because your cards are already annoying as is.
Yeah.
And having cards like this that let you further just bluff a variety of things. Are they going to counter my spell? Are they going to muck me in combat? Are they going to have like a protection spell? And then once this hits play, combat is miserable. Because it's kind of that Aether Vial effect of like, if I block and they vial out a lord, how bad is it for me? Now it's, how bad is it for me if they just cast their lords at instant speed,
Yeah.
Yeah, card's wild. Pretty good. Even if it's a 3/2. But that'll get bigger.
I think 3 for 3/2 flash, like the rest of the words pay for it. It's fine.
Yeah. Again, when we talked about Hull Breacher in the previous episode, Hull Breacher is a card that doesn't show up in the blue-green, or sorry, not blue-green, the Jeskai and the more controlling decks, but in these more tempo-oriented decks, it's fine. You that's a stat line that you're okay with if the ability is as debilitating as this is.
I can't actually tell. Is there one more gold card, James, or are we going to talk about colorless
there is.
artifacts?
There's another one, yeah.
Great. I just can't read it. It's Wail of the Forgotten for 1 blue and 1 black, 2 mana for a sorcery with Descend 8. Choose 1 if there are 8 or more permanents in your graveyard. As you cast a spell, choose 1 or more instead. So this modal spell, always you get to pick 1 mode, but if you have 8 permanents in your graveyard, you can have all of them. It's return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Okay, not bad. Target opponent discards a card. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 1 of them in your hand, and the rest in your graveyard. Okay, so for 2 mana, any of these effects are a little overcosted and kind of hard to cast because it's two different colors. But if you can get all 3, that's fantastic. And just the option of bounce something. That's always nice. Maybe it's their last card in hand that you can get, or just replace itself and put some stuff in your graveyard too, which is great.
Do you want the cynical take first, or do you want the like genuine praise?
Do the cynical take. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, remember the Rakdos one that just said crack a fetch land?
Yeah. Hey, Rakdos hasn't had enough love this century, so we're just going to keep making your cards incredible. Demir, everyone hated you in 2006.
You need
so
8
you get the
permanents,
dregs.
idiot.
Yeah. Put 8 permanent spells in your blue-black control sorceries deck.
The actual take on this card from me is that this is a storm card. This is a combo card.
Okay.
Because it is the bottom line, to look at the top 3, one to your hand, the rest in your graveyard, is just strategic planning and ransack the lab.
Yeah.
Cards that see play in Yawgmoth Storm, some Breach builds. Like, they're good in the spell-based Storm decks. But you also have the flexibility of this being like a Void Snare, Chain of Vapor style card.
Yeah,
where
protection.
you're like, oh, I'm just going to bounce your Thalia or your Archon of Emeria, and then I'm going to combo off. So early on, it can play this game of, I'm just finding my Black Lotus and my combo pieces. But if you get it when you need it to either keep you alive or bounce something, then it can do that too.
I don't mind it in, like, blue-black is the traditional Delve deck, which is playing a lot of Sleight of Hand, Opt, Consider, Thought Scour. Like, you might want to play this card specifically in that deck if you are just constantly filling your bin with stuff anyways.
It has to be permanents.
8 permanents.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That deck plays 52 to 60 permanents if we're going pretty ham, assuming we're on like 18 to like 20 creatures.
No, I mean that's fair. Yeah.
It's a lot, and
It's harder to
typically,
do than you think. Okay.
it's hard to. I think this is extremely ambitious.
I don't know
to
which
descend.
deck
That's fair.
plays this card and expects to descend 8 off of it.
All right.
But I like the call that the flexibility.
Combo card? Yeah.
For
of
what
Void
it's
Snare.
what it's worth, though, like if you are casting spells or removing cards from your graveyard as those decks, it's usually your cheaper spells off like Snapcaster Mage or Jace Vryn's Prodigy, that kind of card. So in a long enough game, if this is Descend 8, this is like busted, right? It's like Recoil plus Strat Planning, which is just 5 mana worth of cards.
It's a little sad to me that I'm doing it. We're all guilty of it at some point. If only it said target player discards a card, then I would think it'd be kind of sweet and Dredge, because that deck can descend 8.
Yeah,
and like what it would really love is the extra option of just being like, I just want to just target me with Thoughtseize, right?
I
It
want
does
your
that sometimes.
Scoos out of here. I want to discard the card that I've been holding because of that Scoos.
Yeah.
And then I want to, draw a card.
It doesn't quite do that, so I don't know that's going to see any Dredge.
All right, let's move on to artifacts here. We've just got the one. Chimley.
Nope.
Almost.
Chimmel, pardon me. Chimmel, the Inner Sun. This is a 6 mana legendary artifact that says spells you control can't be countered. At the beginning of your end step, discover 5.
Lol.
Haha, Lamau.
Lol, Lamau.
Okay.
Dude, you don't like tinkering?
I guess. I mean, tinkering too, it's kind of cool, right? You're kind of off to the races for the rest of the game, and when you go to your end step, you get to discover 5, so you get like a free rock afterwards.
So Does this take over from Defense Grid?
I don't know who wants this. Like, it's too expensive to be Defense Grid, right? Like, it's cool and it's fun. I don't know. It's 6 mana.
It's a mythic rare artifact that says can't be countered, and end of your turn get a free spell.
Well, no, it can be countered though.
Sorry, it can be countered.
Yeah,
Other stuff you control can't be countered.
Yeah.
So it's a card that it reads like it's a people pleaser, right? They're like, oh, my stuff can't be countered, and I get to draw extra cards and cast them for free.
Yeah.
This has got to be good. And it's just like, no.
That's what I'm thinking here. I mean, I guess this is another one of these cards of, we're talking about it so that you don't ask us about it. And I don't love it. And I think that's fair. And I think this falls under the category of, I don't love the terminology of traps, but of cards that, I mean, obviously, look, at the end of the day, play what you want to play, have fun, experiment, make your own opinions on it, stuff like that. Kill me with this cards if you want to. But this is only good against blue. and it's very expensive to kind of roll the dice and see if you get lucky into something at the end of each turn.
As the premier artifact pilot of the format, and none of you can contest this, that's okay.
That's fair.
It's premier artifact pilot of the format.
Unless it's swords.
Unless it's what?
What do I have to do?
Swords. Like if I'm Sword of War and Peace, I'll kill you. That'll
Do
take
I just
that
have
crown.
to put an artifact in my deck and then win a match against you, and then I can take it, or what?
I mean, with that large of a hill to climb, sure, bud.
Oh my god. Jesus. Please. all
Sorry,
right.
let me. Yeah. You're not worried about your stuff being countered. That's like not the issue
Yeah.
when
No.
you're piloting the artifact decks. You're worried about that stupid Goblin Guide or that Kasali
Yeah.
Pride Mage.
Or the oof.
Or the oof. And this just doesn't help you with that kind of stuff.
Cool.
It's a funny card though.
It is. Yeah, it's cool.
Like
it's fun.
If you still have a Staff of Nin in your deck and you want to replace it with this, like go for it.
Like that's what I was gonna say. Is like, when was the last time I played Coercive Portal? Right? You're like, what are these artifacts that give you a spell each turn?
I would play this in Hubris Cannon.
Okay.
The mono brown stacks Lux Cannon deck, remember?
I don't remember that.
Oh,
deck,
that
but
was
okay.
a hell of a Friday night paper fight.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to lands. Wheeler, start us off.
Echoing Deeps, excuse me. Echoing Deeps.
Yep.
Okay. Interesting.
Deeps. Multiple deeps.
Echoing Deeps. It's a land cave. Ignore that. You may have Echoing Deeps enter the battlefield as a copy of any land in a graveyard, except it's a cave in addition to its other types. Tap to add a colorless.
And it's also tapped. Important to note.
Yes, and it's tapped. So it's effectively a Vesuva, but it copies something in a graveyard.
Yeah.
And that's kind of cool. Don't know how good it is, but that is kind of cool. It's a very unique effect.
Yeah.
We got the Mirren Safe House in this now. You know?
Yeah, there's Mirren Safe House. You could probably do some kind of combo. So there is a very, I don't want to say bad, but it is. There's an Amulet Bloom combo deck that you technically can play in this format as somebody that has 3-1 with it on 2 separate Thursdays.
Okay.
Thank you very much. This was 7 years ago.
Yep.
But yeah, I think there is room to explore these heavy land combo decks that utilize cards like this or Mirren Safe House, because you're bound to put cards in your graveyard anyways.
Go with me on a journey.
Okay.
What was the green intuition for lands?
Realms Uncharted.
I thought you were gonna say go with me on a journey to a realm uncharted.
Yeah, I forgot the name of that card. Realms Uncharted
Mm-hmm.
makes, the illusion of choice there, because whatever they pick, you get 3 copies of, kind of, except of course the center's play tapped, but still.
Right, but I mean, Realms Uncharted, I think now you can Realms Uncharted and always get a Dark Depths combo, right?
I think with this card probably.
I think this card now completes the cycle. There's another really bad land that works in that loop that I forget its name.
Yeah.
Because it's terrible, gentlemen.
You're like, I have Dark Depths, Echoing Deeps, or that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is relevant.
It's new territory,
Yes.
which
And
is
that's
nice
always exciting.
to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into talking about the rest of the. They did it for us. They completed a cycle immediately. They almost never do that, right?
Wow.
It's Restless Anchorage, a land that enters the battlefield but taps for a white or blue mana, and for 1 white blue until end of turn. This becomes a 2/3 white and blue bird with flying. It's still land, and whenever it attacks, create a map token. Sign me up.
I think this is playable.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I don't know how many more times we're going to be saying that for these, but this
one's good. Yes.
it's cheap, it's evasive, and makes artifacts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gets value. Cheap
Also,
to
I feel
activate.
like blue-white is one of those color pairings that wants more duels too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like-
you'll blue-white proactive deck.
Yes. Sorry. Yes. Yeah. All right. Next up, we have the Restless Prairie.
I thought you had another take.
Oh.
No, yeah, I did. I just wanted to say that
We'll go back.
the blue-white control decks, I think, up until very recently, maybe still now, are playing Colonnade, and this one activates for 2 less. Colonnade hits harder
And has Vigilance.
and has Vigilance, so maybe it only counts as activating for 1 less, but this makes artifacts. I don't know.
Should we even be playing Colonnade?
I think if
Yeah.
you are still playing Colonnade, you want to play this as well
Yeah.
or swap this in. Yeah.
All right. Restless Prairie. This is the green-white version. Enters tapped. 4 mana, 2 green-white. It becomes a 3/3 llama. I'm a llama. I love it. And whenever it attacks creatures you control, get +1/+1 until end of turn. I don't like this one as much.
but I do like the Fortnite pinata.
It's a Fortnite pinata. I also like that it's a llama. If you want to make a Emperor's New Groove themed deck, I salute you. I'd rather play Stirring Wildwood over this.
This ability is genuinely strong. This triggered ability when it attacks, it's just too expensive on the activation, and it's only a 3/3.
Yeah.
So it's like, and it's not permanent. There are 4-mana activated creature lands that are still vulnerable to lightning bolts and whatnot, but they tend to impact the board in a permanent way, like Hive the Eye Tyrant, Den of the Bugbear, that kind of stuff. Even Lumbering Falls has some security in that, like, they're not going to blow up your 3/3.
You're going to play this in green-white tokens.
Yeah, if you have a go wide, then sure.
You're going to play it there.
That's fine.
I don't know if you need to play it in other decks than these 2 colors.
No.
All right, Wheeler.
Restless Reef. It's a shark. Blue-black comes into play, tap 2 blue into black. Until end of turn, it becomes a 4/4 blue-black shark with death touch. And when it attacks, target player mills 4 cards. Gentlemen, prepare your thumbs downs.
Yeah, this is actively helping your opponent kill you.
Yeah.
Wait, no, you can mill yourself.
You could mill it yourself.
Oh, sorry. Pardon me. Sorry.
But still.
I apologize. I thought the opponent, target player,
No.
self-mill.
Serge,
Self-mill, yes.
Serge, you're right. You are helping your opponent by paying 5 mana on your turn to do this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's no creeping tar pit. Admittedly, blue-black basically got the best one from World Wake.
Yes.
Oh my God.
That's still also very good, but creeping tar pit was the
Tar
best
Pit still sees play.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in the meta game with initiative.
Yeah.
one.
There's
Tar Pit's
a
fantastic.
recurring theme that these lands, the creature lands, are at their best when they are evasive or if they impact the board in some permanent way by exiling cards from the graveyard, creating tokens, whatever. And this doesn't do any of that. This just gets blocked by a spirit token. Or whatever.
I don't know where you play this one.
Nelly, you're up.
It's time to talk about Restless Ridgeline. The red-green one enters tapped, and for 2 and a red-green, it becomes a 3/4 red and green dinosaur creature until end of turn. It's still a land. And when it attacks, another target attack creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Untap that creature. I don't know. I'm pretty mid on this one.
What was the land from original
Raging
Zendikar?
Ravine?
Raging Ravine.
That one
yeah.
just got bigger every time you attacked.
No, not Raging
Oh,
Ravine.
not
I'm sorry. I'm talking specifically the Zendikar land that came to play tapped for red, and target creature you control got +2/+0.
Teetering
Oh,
Peaks.
Teetering Peaks.
Yeah,
Teetering
like
Peaks.
I like Teetering Peaks more than this.
Yeah, Teetering Peaks was like this land that casts a shock.
Yeah.
Like, immediately.
Yeah.
You don't have a choice. You have to cast a shock. But yeah, Teetering Peaks was part of a bunch of constructed decks. This card's,
Yeah, Raging Ravine was sweet.
It's a pretty good sign on the evaluation of a card if we spend its entire time slot talking about other cards.
From
Let's talk about the next one, Serge.
All right, next up, we've got the Restless Vents. This is the red-black one. 3 mana. It becomes a 2/3 insect creature token with menace. There's the evasion that we're talking about. And also, whenever it attacks, discard a card. If you do, draw a card.
Great.
This one's good.
Yeah, this one's
Yeah.
good.
Hopefully for the reasons that we talked about before. It's cheaper, it has evasion, and it permanently impacts the game in a way that's awesome. And then finally, Wheeler, the last card we're talking about today.
Volatile Fault. It is a land. It is a cave. Ignore that. Taps to add a colorless, and then pay 1 generic, tap, sack Volatile Fault. Destroy target non-basic land and opponent controls. That player may search their library for a basic land, put it into play, then shuffle. You create a treasure token. This one's pretty interesting. It has shades of Tectonic Edge and Field of Ruin or Demolition Field. Mono White typically plays both Field of Ruin and Demolition Field. Sometimes they only play one because they can only afford one. But it's nice to have an additional option or one that can, fill that gap. 1 mana to activate is huge, right? And it sucks that they may search their library. Some of them that force them to search their library is pretty funny. There are certain other applications involving that. And while you don't get an additional land, getting a treasure is not bad. Like you're spending less mana up front for this ability, and you are getting less long term. But this is half the cost a Field of Ruin,
yeah.
which is pretty important. So I'm a fan. I'll give this a shot for sure. Whether or not it means that I cut the other fields and only play this, or that I play this alongside the other two fields, and like Ghost Quarter if we're still doing that, it's hard to say. But it's nice to have a density. It also just lends itself to more customization in Death and Taxes, which is always a good thing.
I want to say Death and Taxes, I think definitely there's some application there. Also, if your deck is playing Balance, and I don't know if a bunch of Tier 1 decks do, right? But if your deck's playing Balance, this card's kind of sweet.
Ooh,
So
I didn't
whatever
even
Balance
think
deck
of that.
you're playing.
That's so spicy.
Yeah.
that's kind of hot.
Yeah, because I'll search for a land. You're like, hey, I got you.
Well, like, you get the treasure
I
deck.
turned my land into a treasure, and now I balance you. You got nothing.
This does let you, I guess, the decreased cost, but still getting some mana also like benefits. I mean, if your second spell is Balance, great, but it does benefit like a double spell. Like take one action, immediately follow it up with another one.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, what do you think of the set as a whole? Because we're done our set review at this
Overall,
point.
pretty spicy, honestly. Yeah, like, good set for Canadian Highlander.
I'm gonna let the folks at home in on some inside baseball, if that's okay. We were thinking about doing 3-parters for this because there are a bunch of merfolk and a bunch of vampires that we didn't talk about just for the sake of redundancy. But like, this might be the largest, at least in the initial draft, this might be the largest collection of cards for a set review that we've done since like Modern Horizons 2.
They've been shorter, consistently shorter for a while now.
Which is not a bad
Which is
thing.
fine.
No,
Totally
no,
fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's nice that even though this is longer, it's really just pushing the power into spots that you want to
That
see.
need it.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, we didn't just have endless, new best 1-mana red creatures or free spells from this set, but we got a whole bunch of like, oh, in this deck, this gets an upgrade, which is great.
Yeah.
My hope is that this is going to shake things up in interesting ways. I feel like the top decks have been the top decks for a while, and this is maybe going to breathe some life into areas that we haven't seen.
No. But
Yes, and Wheeler. Yes, and
I mean,
Jesus.
is this set dethroning Jeskai and Underworld Breach?
That's fair. Okay. Yeah, it's not that powerful.
It's not, but it does put points into archetypes that are that have genuinely been good, like the Academy mid-range stuff, Merfolk, but people just haven't been like, they haven't given a shot. They haven't respected it.
Sure.
But like, brother, let me tell you, when I washed the Jeskai pilot in the finals with Merfolk, it was not close. And it did not feel as though I had a busted line or anything. It was just like, oh my God, these fish are
These
annoying.
cards are good.
Yeah, wait a minute. When did this happen?
Yeah.
So yeah, and that deck gets like 9 new cards.
I'm going to concede to that 4-mana, like, Lord of Atlantis.
Hackball.
Yeah. I'm just gonna, that thing's going to come onto the battlefield. I mean, like,
you're like, wow, that's like, he's like, sorry, you get how many cards?
Yeah. Oh, that thing's wild.
Cool. Any final thoughts?
Set's great. Keep it up.
Sick. With that, friends, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Let us know down in the comments what you think. There are cards we missed. What do you think the biggest winner is? I don't know. Engagement for the engagement god. Reminder that everything we do is brought to you by you, their support over the Patreon, over at patreon.com/LonelyReadyRun. I've been Serge, joined by the wonderful Wheeler.
Gnomes.
We got a Nelly.
Thanks for watching.
Shout out to James on Tech and to our wonderful editing staff. And we will see you next time. Bye-bye.